You're watching the OBR streaming network. This is a brand new edition of Things I Think I Know About the Cleveland Browns with the always fantastic Quincy Carrier. Follow him on Twitter at Quen_C. What's going on, Q?
Just another day of work in the office, right?
Yeah.
Browns made some signings yesterday. That was a splash of excitement. We continue to wait for the old quarterbacks that still can probably provide you a decent year of starting, I guess. And then we also await the draft, right? Coming up in about a month here. So we're in the middle of the pro day cycle as well. So a lot, but it's a lot and nothing at the same time, ain't it, Brad?
It is. It is. It is. I've had my fits this week about the quarterback situation, and I've kind of ranted and raved. So we're not going to do that today anymore. We're going to talk about some of the Brown signing yesterday and just kind of their. I mean, what they've done along the offensive line has been really solid so far this off season. So Cornelius, pardon me, Lucas, uh, a very solid swing tackle. And then yesterday, kind of out of nowhere, taking me by surprise, big time, Teven Jenkins signing, guy who is at the top of a lot of guard boards in free agency. We haven't seen the numbers on it, except we know it's 1 year deal, as you pointed out to me. Uh, my immediate thought went to Teller.
hmm
Like, does this mean because he has the similar contract to Conklin, similar to Batonio. They restructured Conklin's already, but he has that no guaranteed money left in his deal. Same about a money like what I don't know what is it like 14 or 12 something like that.
If
Um,
you cut Teller, you would save a lot of money next year, right?
yeah,
But not a ton. I think you would actually lose some money. He'd incur some dead cap here. Um, I saw this come across, and like I remember talking about it a week or two ago when I was doing my like best available left. And I brought up that they could go guard, and maybe if they're planning to move on from Batonio, or maybe if they see these guys like tackle the guard potentially. But I thought it was very unrealistic that it happened, given that they've already pretty much thoroughly addressed this line, and Joe Batonio did not retire. This feels like a signing that would make 100% sense if Joe Batonio had retired. Plays left guard, it's a 1 year
yeah,
deal. You allow your rookie to sit there, but Joe didn't retire, so Joe's going to be here. So now we're sitting here wondering, well, what does this mean, right? Feels
yeah,
like there's an odd man out. Here's the thing about Teven Jenkins, right? And it's hard with offensive linemen because you don't have something you can just pull up and be like, oh, damn, this guy's good. Look at this stat, right? You got to watch him.
yeah.
Tevin Jenkins has been a pretty damn good guard. He was going to start somewhere in the NFL. I've seen people talk about this as a depth signing. It's not a depth signing, right? Like this guy could start for Seattle right now at guard. Cincinnati was begging this guy to come in and start for a year at guard. It's a 1 year deal, so it's not like there was like a medical red flag that popped up that wasn't there. I mean, all of his deals would probably be 1 or 1+2s. So you got to ask yourself, okay, why would Teven Jenkins sign here, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that's kind of the thought process I'm going through right now, trying to figure out what the plan is here. Is it to trade Batonio? Is it to trade Teller? I don't think that's the case. The more I think about it, like I think that's my initial thought. But it wouldn't really make sense for the Browns to trade Teller, given that Teller was the best returning offensive lineman they had. He's an absolute fit for the wide zone system they seem to want to be going back to. If you want to replace somebody, either be center or tackle, right?
Right.
Those are the two vulnerable positions on this offensive line. And even with Teller, if you cut him today, you're still going to incur some dead cap, as we talked about earlier. So it makes me think, okay, well, why would Teven sign here then, right? If there's not a spot at guard for him,
Hmm.
he could have walked on to two teams. One of these teams has Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, right?
Yeah,
And been
absolutely.
a starting guard. Like if you want to be a left guard, that's where you go. Maybe they don't have a ton of money to offer you, but you have a good year there. Everybody's going to see you play. You're going to get big money next year. So what might be the motivator? Well, if you're Teven, you came into the league as a tackle, right? Oklahoma State, second round pick, 39th pick of the draft to be a tackle in the
Yeah.
NFL. He was seen as the most, I think Brett Coleman did a video about him, right? The most violent tackle prospect in that year's draft. Like, this is
Yeah.
a real deal tackle prospect. Because of injuries and things that happened to the Chicago Bears over time, he had to play guard most of his career. He only got 150 snaps his rookie year before he got injured at the left tackle position, right? So did not get a real opportunity to play left tackle in his NFL career. For those of you who don't know, 150 snaps, like what, 2 games, right? Like,
Yeah, just a little over, about right around there.
yeah,
Yep.
slightly over 2 games, right? So really didn't get a real shot to play left tackle. 2 games in your rookie year. He moved the guard, right, out of necessity, then had to move the left guard out of necessity. And he might be thinking, hey, I've already played on the left side for the last 2 years. So now the transition isn't going from right to left, right, which we've seen be a problem. That's not the problem. He can go right, he can go left. He has the ambidextrous ability. The question is, can you go from guard to tackle? Well, he was a tackle all but 2 years in his football playing career.
Yeah.
So he might think to himself, hey, this is an opportunity. DeJuan Jones is coming back from injury. They're not super excited about him playing tackle at the weight that he is, right? I have a chance to step in here, be the starting tackle for the Cleveland Browns, prove to the rest of the league that I can play tackle, and then when I'm 28 years old next year in free agency, I can get 20, $30 million over 4 years. Well, for a year, for 4 years, kind of similar to what we saw Dan Moore get, right? Because of your Teven Jenkins, you're thinking, I'm a better tackle than Dan Moore, right? I can get that 20, 22 million. So I think this was a bet on myself decision from Teven Jenkins. Again, this is my speculation. I'm laying all my cards out on the table. Why I'm speculating here. I'm not saying this is sourced or anything, but to me, it makes sense that way. If you look at it from Teven's perspective, right? From the Browns' perspective, it makes a ton of sense too. Like if once you start thinking of him as a tackle, all of a sudden now it makes a lot of sense. Well, yeah, DeJuan, his future's questionable. We don't really want to rely on Jack, so you want DeJuan to be this extra piece. You got a veteran swing tackle too that you can plug in for if you're worried about the injuries. And this was a high quality veteran swing tackle that you got, right? So even if Teven does miss some games, which he has every year in his career, you got somebody you feel like you can plug in without missing a step. You got some decent tackle depth there. And all of a sudden, the whole picture starts to be a little bit more whole.
Yeah.
At guard, it makes no sense unless you're going to trade somebody. But why would you trade Wyatt Teller for somebody who got on a 1-year deal? I don't think that makes much sense to me. So that's where I'm leaning. This is going. Maybe the plans could change after the draft. Like if Marcus and Bo falls to like the 3rd or 4th round, and they get to take him on a huge discount, that might change what they want to do. But I think that's the motivation behind both sides of this Teven Jenkins deal. If we're just looking at it for like what are the motivations that we can see, there might be stuff that we don't see that was motivating this deal, right? We don't know what the numbers are or anything like that, but you know, I'm just trying to do my best detective work, right? Me and Brad trying to do our Sherlock and Watson impression right here, not that Watson, but to figure out what's going on.
You got that right. That's very intriguing, and it makes a ton of sense. And really, if you think about it, if they were able to pitch him this idea, he's in his late 20s still, so he can still do this, and move back out, prove that he can play tackle, and then go get it that, he slots his pay up so much more by being a tackle. Really be a genius pitch to him to think, if you think about it, right? Like here's a guy that can go play start anywhere or not multiple places, right? Viewed it as a starting level, high level guard.
Under 30.
Under 30. What my immediate thought was why they got to be moving somebody or they're what I don't know what they're doing here. Is Teller on the move? Because even if they take the dead cap hit, you are passing on paying the what you owe him this year, right? The cash, the 12 to 14 million cash. So, by kicking him out to tackle, that would be genius. He could totally level up his pay scale, and it would give him the opportunity to do that, and he would give DeJuan some time to recover and work his way back into it. Now, my question would be this for you, follow up on this, because I think this is really a smart idea, and for you to kind of sniff this out. But DeJuan Jones, then, the thought is he could be, I don't know if long-term they want to move him back to the right side. Ultimately, he needs to become a better run blocker is the biggest thing with him. What? So, what do you plan? Your future plans for Dewan Jones?
Yeah, so I think this could be a flexible plan here with Dewan. So with Dewan, you know that you need insurance on both of these tackle positions, right? Because you're going
Yep.
to be rolling out week one a tackle who is not strong on staying healthy on the left side and on the right side of the football field, right? Like that's just where you're at. But you can have Dewan backing up one position, whether it be left or right. You can have Cornelius backing up the other position. We know he can play both sides, right? And
Yeah.
you have the insurance against injury for both of these players that I think is necessary, given that you're going to go in with good guys who could play, potentially, but guys who have injury history. So there will be opportunities to play for Dewan because somebody's going to have to step in at some point, right? Between
Yeah.
between Teven
Oh, no
and
doubt.
Jack, somebody's going to get hurt. Dewan's going to be the first man up in that situation. If they have a week to prepare, if it's during the middle of a game, you probably send Cornelius in there, right? Because that would make the most sense. Veteran player, you plug him in when there's no time to prep. But if you get a week or two to prep, if it's more of a long-term injury or something like that, let's say Jack Conklin's going to be out for 2-3 weeks, then you put Dewan over there, right? And history tells us you're probably going to be in a situation where you do that. It allows Dewan to come back on his own time from this injury, right? The part of the problem he had is he tried to come back too fast from the injury he had a couple of years ago. So
Yeah.
you want to give him all the time in the world, not to feel like he's rushed, because if you need him to play left tackle this year, he's going to be rushed to have to play left tackle.
For sure.
And you don't want to draft somebody in that spot because then, if your plan really is Dewan's our future at left tackle, you don't want to have him feel like he needs to rush back because he's threatened for his spot, right?
Yep.
So I think this is about the long-term development of Dewan Jones. Getting back from the injury, also losing weight, right? Like that's a
Yeah.
very long-term project. You can't just you're not going to sustainably drop a ton of weight in a short period of time.
Yeah.
In any way that doesn't like guarantee that you don't balloon back up. Anybody who's had experience trying to lose weight understands that, right? Like you
For
gotta,
sure.
it's gotta be things over your habits over a long period of time that do that. So understanding the project of Dewan is, but the potential that he has, they want him to stay healthier. That includes him being lighter. And they also, want to give him some game time prep, but don't want to just throw him out there. And I think that's where he will get some time because these are two guys that are probably going to miss time with injury. So there'll be some moments there for Dewan to step in. They have tackle depth on both sides. They have both sides covered. I think this is just going to make sure that, hey, you play Dewan on your terms instead of having to put Dewan in positions that you didn't anticipate.
Let me ask you this question. Now, with something like this, we've seen this happen multiple times with offensive lines. You get an injury at tackle, you get an injury at guard, you're going out 1 week. Would the Browns then move like would they move Jenkins in to play guard during that period, or do you think it's part of an understanding is like, hey, we're going to let you really profile a tackle as long as you're healthy. We're going to let you play this tackle spot, and that is Zinter's spot to step into as a backup guard.
It's a similar dynamic between Cornelius and Dewan, right? Where I mentioned if stuff breaks down in the game, right? It's not
Yeah,
uncommon that Joel says, "All right, I'll play left tackle for the rest of the game," right?
right,
I think that'd be a similar dynamic where if Joel went down and you really didn't have a great you didn't have Cornelius active or something like that, right? So you need to
right.
have Dewan play left tackle. So you got to kick over Teven for one game. I think Teven's fine with that. I would assume Teven's fine with that. But if we're saying, hey, Joel's
Long term.
out for
Okay.
3-4 weeks, then it's going to be Zach Center, right? And then you would have to prepare him to play and then put him there. So I think there's some flexibility there in game. I think the understanding though is as long as I'm healthy, I'm going to play left tackle. If that is the dynamic that they did agree to.
Yes, absolutely. I think this is a great idea. I hadn't even thought of this. We were talking about that he had played tackle
Mm-hmm.
before, so it's a really smart way to look at this because you kind of look at it in a strange way when you see the signing and you're like, wow, it's a really good signing. Where's he going to fit in, right? Or who's on their way out? So this makes more sense if you're going to keep Teller, which I would like to see them keep him. Um, the other thing there is, and I said this right away, I think we'll know more when we see the money on the deal. Like, did they pay? You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
what did they pay for him for 1 year? Might indicate something to us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. It's going to be interesting how this breaks out. The tackle scenario is just one way that this could play out, right? They could see this a multiple
Yeah,
different amount of ways. I think the 1 year part of it, and we can get that confirmed, but the 1 year part of it is interesting, right? Because, like, do you trade away Wyatt for 1 year, even though you're not even going to save money in the 1 year that you traded Wyatt Teller,
yeah,
especially before the draft? I think there is a chance, and this might be a possibility, that they decide, let's say things go wrong or Wyatt's not playing well, or let's say things go wrong, right? And the team really, really needs a guard and they're willing to offer you a lot for Wyatt. Then Wyatt becomes available because then the cap situation is completely different on that. It's post June 1st. And then you do save some money now and then later. And then you could get significant draft compensation. It allows them to be flexible with
yeah.
their
It does.
options at the offensive line. Last year, they were very rigid. They did
Very.
not have much flexibility. And now with Teven Jenkins, it allows you a bit of flexibility here with what you want to do in the draft. Now you're not in a position where, let's say Jahad Campbell's there at 32, right? Or Emeka
Yeah,
Ibuka, or, Matthew Golden, or Elik Ayaman, or like whatever wide receiver you love is there at 32, but Josh Connolly's there. Before what they've done this offseason, you would have been obligated to say, hey, we got to take the tackle. That breaks the
gotta
tie,
take the tackle.
right?
Yep.
But now you're in a position where it's like, hey, it might make a lot more sense to go wide receiver here, depending on what you do
Yeah,
it too. Because if you take like Travis Hunter, then that changes the math, right? But if you go Abdul Carter, still need to address the offense, give them a playmaker. You think a playmaker falls at wide receiver, or you think, hey, man, Jahad Campbell, if JOK comes back, he's the perfect complement to him. If JOK doesn't come back, then he's a perfect replacement for
yeah,
him in this defense. Maybe we go take him, right? It allows you and it frees you up. And this is what free agency should be. The goal for free agency is that it should free you up so that in the draft, you're not worried about plugging the immediate holes on the roster. And you can just say to yourself, who are the best young players that
yeah,
I can develop and make into impact players in the future with, right? Because all this positional value stuff doesn't matter if the player's bad, right?
right.
How young the
Exactly.
guy is doesn't
Yeah,
matter if he can't play in the league, right? Hey, Anthony Schwartz played the right position and he was young. Didn't matter though. Didn't fix a single damn thing, right? And I
not at
think
all.
we sometimes fall into this hole of like, oh, if we draft this position, we fix it. If you are drafting a chance to fix it, right?
Yep.
And really, what you should focus on if you want your team to get better, in my opinion, is drafting good players, right?
Yeah,
And then you try to fix holes with proven talent,
yeah.
proven commodities in free agency or trades.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. That is the philosophy. Barry's done a pretty good job at that in the past. So, good stuff there. Really interesting. And regardless, and I think that makes the most sense the way you laid it out with Jenkins, Lucas. Both signings make you feel much better about their ability to adapt on offensive line as they go into the regular season. You know what I mean? Or even just plan. Both guys are competent replacements that have played a ton of games at the NFL level. So I feel better about the offensive line already, and that's good stuff.